Now, speaking about the protests, I think when we think about them especially on a day like today, Black Tuesday, a question that a lot of people have, and certainly that I have had, is what's next and who might be responsible for that change? So I want to bring in Jack Brewer. He's the CEO of the Brewer Group, former NFL player, friend of the show, sometimes my arch nemesis. We'll see how he lands today. Jack, thank you so much for joining us. I want to ask you about your relationship with the Trump administration. I know you are quite close to people there. How have you had conversations with them about racial inequality and moving forward, what the White House needs to do in terms of policy?
Yes, we have. The Trump administration has really been in the forefront. We talk about coronavirus. We've had several meetings collectively with groups all across the nation, NAACP, Black leaders, churches, and what have you, trying to work on the discrepancies in some of the issues in the Black community, because it's crippling us, the coronavirus. And so similar to now, people are looking for answers from the White House for these local police departments. But the reality is that's just not the White House's job. They don't even have the authority in a lot of ways to force prosecutions unless they go through the federal system of hate crimes, which they're doing and have done. Folks don't realize, but the Trump administration was the first administration in over a few decades to actually enforce hate crime legislation against a police officer. If you look back over the last 10, 15 years, you think of all those crimes, Trayvon Martin, Eric Gardner, and the likes. None of those police officers were ever charged with a hate crime until 2018. And so that's a sad situation. But when you look at what's going on in the ground in Minneapolis, I played for the Vikings. I went to school at the University of Minnesota, very tied into that community. The breakdown here in this scenario, and it's sad that no one's covering it, is that police officer had 17 offenses, 17 reported offenses. He had another human life that was lost in his hands. That is a local issue. That police officer had no right ever policing the streets of any city in America. And he should have been in jail before this one. And that's really what's sad, is that, you need local leadership to step in and oversee these police departments, because the way America works, every jurisdiction is separate.
So Jack, I have to push back on you here. You and I always like to get into a little bit of a fight every time you come onto the show.
Really?
So I know you're saying that the White House does not have some of the authority, to step in on some of these local issues, even if I were to believe that entirely. The Trump administration has worked over the last couple of years to roll back protections that we see helping Black folks. If you want to look at issues of healthcare, if you want to look at issues of vacation.
Name one.
I just said healthcare.
Name one.
The Affordable Care Act, as we all know, Black folks do not have the same kind of access to healthcare as their white counterparts, and yet wants to roll back making sure that everyone can have the same kind of access to healthcare. When it comes to affirmative action, which we know is helping women and people of color, particularly women of color, access education, wants rollbacks there. So,
So let's talk back.
What exactly is the Trump administration doing to help communities of color, in your mind, to tackle this racial inequality?
I'm glad you asked, and it's important that we say, you start off with education. You said these rolling back things. Well, the Trump administration has given more money to historical Black colleges and universities than any president in history. Actually, the former administration was actually pulling back funds from HBCUs. The Trump administration was the first president to give them long-term funding. Fact. Another fact, you talk about women. Well, women under the Trump administration have received more money from the SBA than any time in history. Black business growth is through the roof for women. Now, that's one of the pride and joys of not just the Trump administration, but America. And you talk about the Affordable Care Act. The Affordable Care Act is a philosophy. And what the President Trump came in to do was to say, pre-existing conditions, you will never release those. Anybody with a pre-existing condition keeps their insurance. What we're saying is there's a lot of waste in that, because you're forcing healthy people to take insurance that don't want to, and you're mandating people, and you're actually giving them fines if they don't want to take insurance. So you're actually hurting a lot of healthy Black people. There's a lot of African Americans that don't necessarily like Obamacare, And so when you talk about what the Trump administration has really done, look at opportunity zones. Look at what the Trump administration and how much money and stimulus has gone into urban areas. Billions of dollars in new projects right now are on the ground being built, even through these rough financial times for African Americans. And then we want to talk about the system that's really breaking us down. Our entitlement system has across the board depressed and oppressed fatherhood, right? Every entitlement program that you see discounts fatherhood, and if a father comes in the home, they lose their benefits. Those things are wrong. Those type of policies do not help Black America. The policies that do help Black America is letting the Black men out of prison that shouldn't be there, that are disproportionately put there because the previous administrations all sat under the 1994 crime bill and watched our homes be decimated by unfair criminal justice practices. Those are nothing to do with the Trump administration. President Trump has let tens of thousands of people out of jail and has called states down the line to follow his suit. And so to disregard that is just it's not right, and I don't think it's a fair analysis.
All right. Well, moving on slightly from what the administration is doing, I know you said that not all of their responsibility lies with them. What do you think, because I know that you do investments, what do you think the responsibility is for corporate America? You know, we had an announcement today from Bank of America announcing a $1 billion initiative, so a huge chunk of cash there for racial equality initiatives. So what role does corporate America play in this? And do you think they should be leading the charge ahead of the federal government?
Of course. I think it's the responsibility of our employers to look out for the best interests of their employees. You know, and issues relating to Black America helps all America. And so I think, you know, when you look at what's going on in our society today, you have a segment of our population that I fit into. I do not like sending my Black son out to the grocery store at night because I don't want him to get pulled over. Those type of things are systematic, and we gotta approach those. And I think the corporations can push a lot of these policies within their own groups to have inclusion, and we've made a lot of progress here. I know my wife works at one of the largest corporations in America, and the steps they've taken towards cultural diversity are impressive. I'm blown away by them, actually. And so I think at some point we got to remember that we got to get back to the principles that bring us together, and that's humanity. I think a lot of times we use identity too much. We use identity to divide each other, when in all actuality, most people deep down inside have love for each other. And I think, you know, corporate America, the businesses across America, and the people of America are speaking loud right now. They're speaking clear. I just hope we can quit the divisiveness.
All right, we'll leave that there. Jack, I always appreciate you giving, because Black folks are not a monolith, so I always appreciate you giving you know, the other side and the other opinion. Today, clearly we are on other sides of the aisle, but always a friend, a friend of the show, Jack Brewer, CEO of the Brewer Group. Thanks for joining us today.
God bless you. I wish you nothing but luck. See you soon.
You too. See you soon.